Please take your seats if you can. Please take your seats. We're going to get started. Please take your seats. Please take your seats now, please. All right, good morning, good morning. Can I get all your attention, please? Good morning. How are we all doing this morning? Good? Great, great, great. Okay, so this morning is a very special event. My name is Josh Dismukes, and today I have the opportunity to introduce Miss Susan Hendricks, who will be our moderator for today's discussion with Mr. Leopoldo Lopez. So I'd like to take a moment to welcome all the alums in attendance and also all of those watching our live broadcast remotely. And before we welcome Mr. Lopez to the stage, please allow me to introduce today's moderator, Miss Susan Hendricks, Hun School class of 1991. Go ahead, yep. Miss Hendricks is a seasoned journalist with extensive experience at CNN and HLN. In addition to providing regular news updates on Anderson Cooper's CNN primetime show, AC 360, she also served as an anchor for HLN's Weekend Express from 2016 until December of 2022. At HLN, she undertook various notable assignments, including a one-on-one interview with Joe Petito, the father of Gabby Petito, who candidly shared the challenges his family has faced and discussed the actions they are taking to advocate for changes in the law to better support families dealing with missing loved ones. Ms. Hendricks also led comprehensive coverage of the Delphi double murder investigation. Notably, she co-anchored a special report titled Delphi Murders, Teen Girls Killer in Custody, alongside the esteemed retired cold case investigator, Paul Holes. Last fall, she published her first book called Down the Hill, My Descent into the Double Murder in Delphi, an investigative deep dive into the case she's been reporting on since 2017. In January, Ms. Hendricks began co-hosting Headline Crime, a new YouTube show that covers the latest true crime news, analysis, and interviews. Prior to her roles at CNN and HLN, she served as a morning news anchor at the NBC affiliate WMIR and worked as a reporter for the ABC affiliate KESQ, both located in Palm Springs, California. She also holds a Bachelor in Arts in Journalism from Arizona State University. Please join me in welcoming today's moderator and Hun alum, Ms. Susan Hendricks.
Thanks, Josh. Appreciate that. And a big hello to the Hun School community. This gym looks the same, but so many of the places I remember on campus look a little different. The SAC is no longer the SAC, but wow, such great memories here. And it's an honor to be here, especially for the reason that I am here, to honor my friend, Leo Lopez. The Hun School is special to so many of us because of the lifelong friendships that it facilitates. One of the early memories I have with Leo, who was a boarding student, my sister and I were day students, he would sign out to our house for the weekend, along with some of my friends over there, Tom Lester, Seth Walkoff. And we had this wall in my house where you could sign your name and write a message. There were no iPhones back then, so it's what we did for excitement. So he wrote out his full name, Leopoldo Eduardo Lopez Mendoza, and told me to repeat it several times, and knew what he wanted to do at such a young age. Talked about his great-great-grandfather being the first president of Venezuela. So I tried my hardest to say the name correctly. He was only 16 years old at the time, but he knew he wanted to make a difference. Fast forward to 2014. Not only had Leo become the mayor of Caracas, he transformed that city from one of the most dangerous cities in the world to a city that was thriving because of his leadership. He also created a movement against the evil regime of Maduro. So I'm working at CNN at the time, and I understand what's going on, and there was a warrant out for his arrest, all because of peaceful protests in Venezuela. I spoke to a few producers who were planning on creating a package or doing a story on Leo, and I started to explain how I knew him and shared some of the memories. That's when they asked me to be in the piece. And here it is. I'll play it for you from 2015. Take a look.
When Leopoldo López turned himself into authorities in Venezuela, he did it on his terms. A former mayor and presidential candidate was facing an arrest warrant. The government of President Nicolás Maduro accused him of inciting the violence that has left several people dead in violent anti-government protests over the last week in Venezuela.
The last thing he told me was, don't forget why this is happening. Don't forget why he's going to jail. He's asking for the liberation of political prisoners and students and an end to repression and violence. Manuela, my daughter, who's 4 years old, asked me about it. I told her, Manuela, he's working for Venezuela. Because Leopoldo, wherever he is, in jail tonight, he's going to be working for us and thinking of us. He's going to keep on dreaming about a better Venezuela, as he always does.
The charismatic political leader has a master's degree from Harvard. He attended Kenyon College in Ohio, graduating in 1993, and was a boarding student at a private Princeton high school. HLN anchor Susan Hendricks was a close personal friend of Lopez's in high school and says they have kept in touch over the years.
Oh, it wasn't a surprise at all.
Lopez's future seems uncertain at best. Hendricks says friends from school and others who know Lopez well, both in the United States and Venezuela, are now praying for Lopez and his country in turmoil. Rafael Romo, CNN.
We were trying to troubleshoot the audio, but the gist really is about what he's done and what he was willing to sacrifice and what he did sacrifice for Venezuela. Leo was sentenced to 14 years in prison, spent 4 years in solitary confinement in a military prison, house arrest, then back to a military prison. Didn't see his parents for 7 years and his kids for several years during that particular time. He escaped in 2020, but has never stopped fighting for the people of Venezuela. Please welcome now Leopoldo Eduardo Mendoza Lopez.
Thank you. Thank you. So from here? Yes, from wherever. Well, thank you. Thank you to the Hun School. Thank you, Susie. Susie was a legend when we were here. And thanks to my friends that are here, to Tom, to Lester, and Seth. I appreciate all of you, seeing Mr. Kerr, seeing Mr. Sable, seeing all of you. It's great. And I can tell all of you that this is a place that is going to stay with you for the rest of your life, and it stayed with me for the rest of my life. So I was 15, I was in Venezuela, and my father told me, I think you should go to prep school. I was getting good grades, but I was not doing very good in terms of behavior. So he said, you should go out to the same school that I went to. So my father graduated from the Hun School in '63, and I remember coming and doing the same walk I did with my daughter today through the mall. And the Hun School really changed my life. So the first thing I did was to get a job here. So I got my first job as a dishwasher. And I was getting the trays of all of the students. I didn't know to speak English. I still have an accent. I always wanted to keep my accent. But at the time, I was still learning English. So it was a real shock to me to come from Venezuela to the United States. And the first thing, my first encounter with most of the students was to get their trays, get their food, and work at the kitchen. I remember Ruben and I remember Humberto, who were working with me, that became good friends throughout the years. Even when I was in college, I would meet with them. And then the Hun School also gave me academics. It gave me the possibility of thinking of the future in a different way. I never stopped thinking about my country when I was here, but I was also given the opportunity to do different things. So I engaged athletics in a way that really marked my life. So I was in the rowing team with your sister, and with Ethan Hawke, actually, was in my boat. We were in a Ford boat. I was a lightweight at the time. I still think I am a bit of a lightweight. And we did very, very well. And I was looking at the prizes that you guys have been getting over the years. I was also in the swimming team, and we were swimming at the Mercer County swimming pool that I understand is still the same pool that you guys are using for the swimming team. And I remember one of the most important things, my first year here, at the end we had the campaign for the student body. And with my friend Teddy Goldstein, we decided to run for the student body. And we had an assembly like this. All of the students were here to listen to the campaign. And there were maybe 8 candidates. And I was thinking, what am I going to say? What am I going to say? So I decided to start my speech in Spanish. Empecé a hablar con todos ustedes en español y les decía, mi nombre es Leopoldo López, quiero ser el presidente del Consejo Estudiantil. And people were thinking, what the hell is he saying? So I got their attention. I got the attention of everybody, and we won. We won the student council, and then Mr. Sable was our guide. Microphone, it's okay. So Mr. Sable was our guide throughout that year, throughout senior year. And when I graduated in '89, I went to Kenyon College. Kenyon College is a small liberal arts college in Ohio. And after 4 years, when I graduated, I went to Harvard. I started a PhD track in philosophy and theology, but very quickly learned that that was not my passion. My passion was Venezuela. My passion was dedicating to public service. So I went back to Venezuela for a year, and then I went back to Harvard, where I graduated from the School of Government in 1996, and I went back to Venezuela. That was my passion. Started working at the company of oil, the National Oil Company, and I loved my job. I was teaching at the university. I was teaching economics at the university. I started an NGO that was dedicated to give the poorest people in Venezuela access to small claims court and small justice. And then in 1989, Hugo Chavez won the election, and I decided to run for the Constituent Assembly. So I quit my job, and I lost, and I was unemployed. So I decided to work in the same path, in a different way, and I ran for mayor of the city where I was born, and I was 26 at the time, and we put together a great campaign, door-to-door campaign. So I was hunting for the places where there was traffic. I was polling 3%. There were 7 candidates, and everybody told me it was impossible to win. But I knew that if I shook hands with people and I told them that this is what I want to do for the municipality, and I did that every day, 5 a.m. in the morning, I went out to meet people, and I won the mayorship. So I became mayor, and I brought in a great group of people, a lot of young people to work with us, and we transformed our part of the city. But at the time, Venezuela was changing. Venezuela was moving from a democracy with its problems, but a democracy to a full-on autocratic country. So for the next 8 years, I was mayor, and also I was leading most of the protests that were taking place in Venezuela against Hugo Chavez. And in the year 2008, I decided to run for higher office. So I was running to become the governor of Caracas. I was polling very high. I had 70% of the support, but they disqualified me from running. Basically, took me out of the race, no reasons. That's how dictatorships work. So I was unemployed again. And I decided to continue my struggle, my fight in a different way. So we built a civil resistance, nonviolent movement inspired very much in the teachings and the thinking of Martin Luther King. I've read everything about nonviolent action, but of all of them, I really identify with Dr. King's legacy and his way of approaching nonviolent action. So we went out, went all over the country, and in the year 2014, we called for massive protests. And people came out, and people came out massively. And the regime decided to imprison some students. So we decided to go back again to the streets. And on February 12th of 2014, we had a massive protest, and the dictatorship decided to start killing people. And they shot in the back of his head a young man called Basil da Costa. He was 21. He was a student, but also a carpenter. And then they shot Robert Redman, and then they shot Juancho Montoya. And soon after, the regime accused me of promoting violence. We were absolutely non-violent. We were very disciplined about being non-violent, but they wanted us in prison. So I went into hiding, and I told my wife that I was going to go into hiding, and I had three choices. I could stay in hiding, I could go into exile, or I could turn myself in. And I decided to turn myself in. And I decided to turn myself in because at the time, this is 2014, it was not clear what was happening in Venezuela. Many people thought that Venezuela was still a democracy. Many people in Venezuela were also thinking that we had a democracy that was not going in the right direction, but that it was still a democracy. And we knew that it was already an autocratic regime. So I decided to turn myself in. And I did so thinking about what were my alternatives, but also thinking about what Martin Luther King said about nonviolent action. Martin Luther King wrote from the Birmingham prison, a great, great document called A Letter from Birmingham Prison. And it states there, if you want to know about nonviolent action, that is the document to read. And he says, nonviolent action is about showing the scars of the system, the putrefied scars of the system, in order for the people to get the consciousness to mobilize and to change the system. And that's what I thought I was doing. Decided I'm going to turn myself in to show the scars of the system, to continue to mobilize. So I turned myself in. You saw some of those images. That was February 18th of 2014. Massive, massive protests. Almost 1 million people came out to the streets in Caracas and all over Venezuela. I started that day in the trunk of a car from the place I was hiding to a friend's house, from a friend's house to a place that we had convened the people to turn myself in. And then they had to take me in a helicopter from the center of Caracas to a military prison. So that day, the 18th of February of 2014, my life again changed. So I was put in a cell, and I stayed in that cell for the next 4 years. Most of the time in solitary confinement, most of the time without electricity, most of the time having nothing to read or to do. But some of the times I did have some books to read. So I had, before I went into prison, I knew that this was something that could happen to me. So I started to read a lot about what do you do in prison. So I read the experience of Gandhi, of Luther King, of Mandela, of course, and of many Venezuelan people that had been in prison as well. And the experiences were very different, but they all talked about something. Your routine, the discipline of the routine. So I decided that my routine was going to be doing 3 things. That I was going to pray every day. I am a Roman Catholic, but I think that this applies to anybody of any religion. That I decided that that was something that was going to ground me in a strong way. I would read and write mind, soul, and body. So those were the 3 things I did every day. Every day I would pray. Every day I would try to read, write, draw, exercise my head. And every day I would work out in my cell. My cell was no bigger. It was half of the size of this stage. And my universe was not those four walls. My universe was my mind, was my imagination, was the books that I was reading, was the drawings that I was trying to do, or was the thinking when I didn't have any books. So after 4 years of confinement, and during those 4 years, by the way, my wife, Lillian, was incredible. I was very lucky for different things. I've been a very lucky person ever since I was born. I was born in a family that allowed me to have 3 plates of food every day, that allowed me to have an education. And that's actually why I went into politics, because I knew that I was part of the lucky crowd and I wanted to change the lives of the people in Venezuela. But I was also very lucky because I met my wife, and she became my voice. My wife had nothing to do with politics. She was Venezuela national kite surf champion. She had a TV program of extreme sports, and that was her life. But when she married me, our lives changed. So when I went into prison, I told her, this is an extreme sport. We need to face this the same way we face a mountain when we want to climb it, the same way we face the high tides or the high winds or the high waves. And she went out, and she was my voice, and she was the mother of my 2 kids at the time, and she was the leader of the Venezuelan freedom movement throughout those years. So after 4 years of confinement, I was able to, or they took me to house arrest. I didn't want to go to house arrest, but that's the decision they made. And from house arrest, I called for protest again, because people were protesting in the streets. So they took me back to military prison. They took me back to military prison. I spent some time there, and then they took me back to house arrest. And in 2019, I escaped house arrest. I escaped house arrest with the support of the military and the police that were in charge of keeping me safe or keeping me in prison. And I was able to get them to dream with us of a free Venezuela. So they allowed me out. We had an uprising that day. Things didn't go the way we exactly had planned. So I had to go to the Spanish embassy in the middle of another protest. I went to the Spanish embassy, where I stayed for two years, almost 2 years. In the Spanish embassy, this embassy was surrounded by the forces of the dictatorship. It was only the ambassador, his wife, and the equivalent of the Navy SEALs of Spain that were there. So I stayed there. I would work every day, work with our movement. I would train with the Navy SEALs. And then at the end of 2020, I had to escape. My mother was very sick. I had not seen my parents for 7 years, as Susie said. I had not seen my kids for almost 2 years. Manuela, my daughter, is somewhere here. I don't know where she is, but she's somewhere here. And I decided that I could have more impact to the fight if I leave Venezuela. So my escape was very tough. They actually caught us at the very last moment before crossing the border. It was COVID at the time, so I had my mask, and they never knew who I was, so that's why I'm here talking to you. When I went back to meet my wife, I told her I want a 4th kid, and I want my 4th kid to be named COVID, because I am here because I might be the only person in the world that has, something to say good about the COVID and the masks. That didn't happen. We actually have another child. Manuela was 4 when I went to prison. Leo, my son, was 1. And for years, I told my wife that I wanted a 3rd child. And she said, how are you going to have a 3rd child? You're in prison. I was sentenced to 14 years of imprisonment. It was difficult, of course, but we figured out. And one day, Mother's Day, they gave me the possibility of having my wife to visit me. So the magic happened. And we have a 3rd child, Federica. So she's my best nonviolent protest. She's my best nonviolent protest. Because I told my wife that we cannot let the dictatorship decide how big our family is going to be. So now we have 3 kids. And after I escaped through Colombia, crossed the border, went through Colombia. We had to go through the FARC and the ELN, which is a terrorist groups in Colombia that are taking place of those territories. Went to Bogota. From Bogota, I flew out. I went to the United States. And again, like it happened several times, I had to reinvent myself. Because I never wanted to go into exile. I love my country. I love Venezuela. I have a tattoo of Venezuela in my leg. I live and breathe and dream about my country. So being in exile was very difficult. And for the first couple of months after being in exile, I was trying to figure out, what do I do? And I started to meet other people from different countries. People that were also living under autocratic regimes. People from Iran, from Zimbabwe, from Uganda, from Russia, from Belarus, from Cuba, from Nicaragua. And we decided to come together and build a movement of democracy defenders, freedom fighters that would collaborate in order to bring democracy to our countries. So we created a movement called the World Liberty Congress, that it's an incredible movement. It's a very diverse movement. We have nothing alike. I mean, skin color, religion, history, climate, everything about the groups that we are putting together might be different. But there's one thing that we come together around, which is the dream to be free. The dream to be free and the will to fight for freedom. And I've been incredibly impressed when I talk to people from all over the world about the struggle for freedom. And it doesn't matter in what country they are, it's the same struggle. It's the same dynamic where you are, you have to confront an autocratic regime, the way they go after you, the way they imprison you, the way they dismantle your movements, the way they falsely accuse you, the way they go after your people. So today, I'm dedicating, of course, focused in Venezuela, but I'm dedicating a lot of my time to bring together democracy defenders and freedom fighters from all over the world. And let me tell you something, and I'll end with this so we can have the conversation with my great friend Susie. Today, the world is not in a good situation in terms of democracy. I don't know if you realize this, but 7 out of 10 people that live in this planet live under some sort of autocratic regime. 7 out of 10. For the past 20 years, democracy has been in a recession. So every year for the past 20 years, there is less democracy in the world. And what does that mean? That might not mean anything if you don't think about it. You might think that democracy and autocracy is the same. It's not. It's not. Because only in democracy you can speak your mind. Only in democracy you can meet with whoever you want. Only in democracy you can have the possibility of following your own dreams. And I can tell you from my own personal experience, but I can tell you that it's not just my experience, it's the experience of billions of people in the world. In my case, all of my rights were taken away from me. The right to assemble. Our organization was accused of being an illegal and a terrorist organization. I was sentenced to 14 years of imprisonment for doing what I'm doing today, for speaking my mind. 14 years of imprisonment. They had nothing against me, so they created a case, and since they had nothing against me, the judge, after 100 days of trial, concluded that even though I never called for violence, I had the possibility of sending subliminal messages to the Venezuelan people, and that's why they reacted in a violent way according to them. Of course, that was not possible, but that's the grounds that they accused me, and that's what happens when you're in a democracy, in an autocracy. Our property was taken away, our house. Our possibility to assemble, as I said, was also taken away. Our freedom to be in the streets was also taken away. So I had a lot of time to think about what does it mean to be free. My thinking about freedom is that freedom is not one thing. You see freedom all over the place. A lot of people use freedom for slogans. We want to be free. People sing about freedom. People do poetry about freedom. But freedom, for me at least, is not one thing. Freedom is the possibility of doing many things. Freedom is the possibility to walk freely, to assemble freely, to speak freely, to walk freely, to dream freely. And that is what we're fighting for. And that quest for freedom, at least for me, started here at the Hun School. It started here. When I left my country, I started to meet other people from different parts of the world, started to meet people that were also dreaming for a better future. So I can tell all of you that you're all very privileged. You're all very lucky. You're very lucky of being here. And I'm sure some people have said this to you before. But I would like to tell you that most of the people your age in the world don't have the possibility that you have. Most of the people in the world today don't have the possibility of being educated in the way you're being educated. So you will hear this over and over, here at the Hun School. You will go to college and you will hear this. But I can tell you that these are the years that are going to shape you. And I think that you should do all of the things that you would like to do. Do the sports that you want, meet the people that you want, be good, be bad in some ways. Go party or not, that's all fine, and do it. And take the best advantage of friendship, take the best advantage of having fun as well. But also know that these are the years that are going to shape you. And I would ask you to dream big. Every one of you has the possibility of changing the world in some way. Every one of you, if you search and go after your own dream, you will make a change. Have your own dream. Think about what is it that is meaningful for you. Think about what is it that moves you and follow that dream. I did follow my dream. I was looking at my yearbook and what I said, they put a quote. And basically what I said 35 years ago is what I ended up doing. I said, I want to work for my country. And that's what I did after I left this school, and I went to college and I went to grad school. But I always committed to that dream. And that dream might change its shape, but you will be lucky and you will be blessed and you will be a happy person no matter what if you follow your dream. And I'll end with this. Happiness, it's not only about having a smile in your face. Happiness is not about having things. Happiness, at least for me, is about having a purpose. Happiness is about waking up every day with meaning in your life. Saying, I am doing this because I care for this. So find something that you care about and follow that dream and make it true. And remember, always remember, all of you are very lucky. You are very lucky people. Your parents brought you here. You are here. You're getting the best education that you could get in the planet. Take the best use of that and have fun while you're doing it. Thank you very much.
Hi, over there. It's good to see you. So you talked about freedom, Leo, and I heard you compare it to oxygen. You don't think about it until you don't have it. And you were the epitome of that in terms of being in solitary confinement. You know what it's like to have that stripped from you. Is that right? And how did you get through? Because you talked about being in solitary confinement. And I know that you said it's all about my mind and lowering expectations. If I thought about, I make it out in a month, I make it out in 6 months, that wouldn't allow you to stay strong, and that was your goal, right?
So solitary confinement is very tough, right? So imagine, and I ask all of you, if you can just test it today. Just go to your room and take your phone out and shut the lights and stay there for 10, 15 minutes. Do the exercise. And it all becomes about you. You have no link to nothing outside your head. Your world becomes your head. I mean, you have no way of, having a conversation through a phone. You have no access to TV. You have nothing. So it's all about your head. And I, in a way, prepared myself to go to prison because there were a lot of threats, and they were always threatening me, we're going to imprison you. And I said, I'm not going to stop doing what I'm doing. I'll continue to do what I'll do. And if that takes me to prison, so be it. so be it. So I read a lot about what the experiences of people, and as I said before, it was about the routine. So for me, it was about having the routine I told you, the mind, the soul, and the body. Reading, praying, and exercising, and being very disciplined about that. But something that also was very important was not to be a hostage of time. Because I saw many of the prisoners that they became hostage of time. In what way? That they thought that they could leave prison in a week, in a month, in 6 months, and when that time came and they were still in prison, they collapsed. So something that worked for me was I lived day by day. And if I did those 3 things, I would win the day. So I was very, very disciplined, the same way I was disciplined when I was rowing here or when I was swimming here at the Hun School. I was very disciplined in training. And I can tell you something, for me, the athletics part of education was very important because it gave me discipline, it gave me the possibility of knowing how important it is to have a routine, to have a pattern where you wake up every day and you do the same thing every day and you get good at doing the same thing every day. And that's what I did.
And you mentioned reading, but then they started to strip it down in terms of what they took from you. So at one point, your second time back to the military prison, it was just you at one point, no sheets, no mattress, nothing in there. But you knew there was a camera on you, and that helped you, if you could explain why.
Well, I mean, so imagine you're in solitary confinement. You are, again, in a very, very small place, but your worst enemy has a camera like that in front of you, in the cell. And everything I did could go on national TV. So I was alone, but I was really on a live stream. So that was very hard to deal with. And in that sense, I was able to read at moments, but then they took my books away from me. And you know what they did? So this was my cell, and the bars were here. They took the books away from me, and they put the books right here in another cell. So I could see the books, but I could not read them. And then at one point, I decided to go to a hunger strike. This is 2015. And I went into a hunger strike for 28 days. I lost 14 kilograms, and it was actually a very intense experience. It was tough, but I didn't have a bad time because I was very, very focused. And you know what they did? While I was in my cell, they would bring very savory food every day and with a camera, and they would put a plate of food right in front of my cell, and the food smelled great. And after 2 days, that food smelled better. And after 3 weeks, it was smelling very, very good. But there was a camera right pointing to where that food was, and they were just waiting for me to put my hand and to take the food, because there were 100 political prisoners all over Venezuela also joining that hunger strike. And there were 150 people outside the prisons that were also doing the hunger strike. And we were in a hunger strike for one thing. We wanted free and fair elections. You don't know how important an election is until you have the possibility to choose. And that has been our struggle. And we were successful with the hunger strike because we were able to call for the election. And that year we won 2/3 of the National Assembly.
Wow. And I know how much you meant and still mean to the people of Venezuela. But this morning, and I have to think that it was meant to be, that it was on purpose, I randomly went to an app to get a makeup artist to come here. And she was talking to me, and I explained what I was doing. And she started to cry because she's from Venezuela and left in 2014 because she had to. She was on the streets. I told her all about you, and she recorded a message. I want to play part of it. But she couldn't have been more thrilled.
Oh my God, it was
Her name is
such an
Belgrade.
honor, meeting her, because when she showed me pictures of you, it's big. It's big. My heart is still there. I remember when I was fighting and crying for you because I know how you were committed to us, how you were fighting. You fought like nobody else did. and I still, my heart is with you, and I am thankful that I got to meet her, such an amazing person, and that she's gonna see you, and thank you for this opportunity to let me, at least by video, tell you, like, express my admiration for you.
So, I mean, talk about serendipity and meeting her. And she said her mother is still there, her family's still there, how beloved you were, what you did for her and her family and everyone in Venezuela. She was right there on the streets. She was heartbroken she had to come here, spoke no English, learned after several years, and just wanted me to send her admiration. I know that this is being streamed live and she's watching as well. And I know how much the people in Venezuela mean to you. You mentioned around that time, I was able to talk to your parents and meet your parents and spoke to your dad. And the thing about the Hun School community, as you see now and you will see even when you graduate, how much it shapes you and the lifelong friendships that I mentioned earlier. But during that time, Leo, there was a Facebook page, Seth was on it, Jeremy, my sister Lynn, Kathy, you name it, to update people. We were thinking about you, we heard about the hunger strike, and just seeing your parents and the strength that everyone had to go through with that support. And you say you felt that even in the cell, stripped down to nothing, being tortured. You knew that.
Well, when you're a political prisoner, the most important thing is not to be forgotten. And the Hun School and the community from the Hun School was very active. The community, my friends from college, from grad school, of course the people in Venezuela. And that was very important. You can feel that. You can feel that. And not many people know this, but there are over 1 million political prisoners in the world. 1 million. And these are people who are in prison just because of the way they think. These are people who are in prison because they want change for their countries. These are people who are in prison because they want democracy, they want human rights, they want freedom of speech, they want elections. And this is something that we're committed to end dictatorships and also to end political prisoners. But that strength, of course, it's part of what keeps you going. I personally think that it's very important not to, when you're going through this, just always to be optimistic. I was always optimistic, and I was always with good spirit. I was always, fighting the good fight in a positive way. And I think that applies to everything. My track was going into politics, going into this movement, but I think that this is true for life. If you approach problems with the right attitude, even if you don't solve them, you come out stronger trying to solve them.
And I heard you mention World Liberty Congress, and I've learned through the stories that I've covered through the years and being a journalist, there's nothing like connecting to someone so you don't feel alone. That if you've been through something and you find someone else who truly understands, there's something special there. And you have found that with other leaders. Does that give you hope for democracy, for the future in Venezuela?
No, of course. I mean, as I said before, most of the people in the world are living under some sort of autocratic regime. And when you find people that think the same way, that we are very different, again, very, very different in any way you put it. But when you talk about your dream for freedom, we are the same. And these ideas, freedom, human rights, are universal. And I truly believe that they are universal. And one of the greatest documents that has been written is the Declaration in the United States. We, the people, it's when you talk that everybody's free. But coming to terms to that in real terms is not easy. I mean, this country is still struggling with coming together of all of the people who live here. And this is a democratic country. And this is a country that is a beacon of hope for freedom for the rest of the world, even given that it's going through difficult times, like many other countries in the world. But imagine for countries that you don't have that possibility. I mean, that dream, that shared dream is what brings us together. And this is something that, at least for me, motivates me. And it motivates me a great deal. I was in Africa 3 weeks ago. I was in Cape Town, and we had a meeting with the people from our movement, the World Liberty Congress, in the Parliament of South Africa. And that's the same place where Nelson Mandela, after years of imprisonment, went there and they wrote the new constitution for South Africa. And they were able to overcome apartheid And they were able to do it after many years of struggle, after imprisonment, after many people that were killed, after many people that suffered, but they were able to do it. They are still struggling with different issues, but now they are a free country. And we've believed that, again, that these are universal values, human rights, freedom. And I strongly believe that democracy should be the way everybody in the world should be governed. I know democracy these days is not the same that it was before. So I graduated in 1989, and that year changed the world. 1989, I'm sure all of you know what happened in 1989. What happened in 1989? That's right, the Berlin Wall fell. And that meant that the Cold War started to evolve into a different world. And I was here at the school, I was in Po, and we were looking, there were no smartphones, we only had, the TV, and we were watching at the news, the Berlin Wall fell, and many things were starting to happen. And the world started to change in an incredible way, but not in the way many people thought at the time that it was going to change. Many people thought during the 1990s that the world was going to become more and more and more and more democratic. Many people thought that that was the end of history, as Francis Fukuyama wrote around those years. But it didn't happen. Unfortunately, the world has become more and more autocratic in a different way, in a more diverse way. Not in the simple way of the communist and the free world. Back then it was easy. You had, Rocky IV. I don't know if you guys watch Rocky. You guys watch Rocky the movie? If you haven't, you have to.
You're missing out.
That's the way you should live your life, like just following the example of Rocky Balboa. At least I follow the example of Rocky Balboa. But you should watch it. And let me tell you something. Rocky won, he lost the fight. And Rocky is about standing up again. But Rocky IV is about just this way of the conflict between the Soviet Union and the free world. And that's the way we were looking at the world. It was easier. It was easier. It was two players in the field. Now it's much more diverse. So that's why I commend you to study about what's happening in the world, what's happening in many countries that are not free today, and what that means to billions of people.
I was thinking it'd be great if we could cue the Rocky music.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I love that music. So finally, I wanted you to touch on, Leo, about your escape. And you mentioned friendships. If you could tell the story of calling your friends with the electricity van and how that went.
Well, so, when I went to house arrest, I called a friend. This is a friend of mine that I've asked him for help for different things, to do extractions in Venezuela, different things. And this is a guy, that type of people that you see in the movies, that they have a different life at night, during the day, come on. You'll never know, but he's very efficient and a close friend. So I told him, one day I'm going to call you, and I will need you to put together my escape. So several years went by, and then when I decided to escape, I called him and I said, "Hey man, how are you? Hey, you know." And that was it. And I knew that he was going to put together the plan. So after a month, we talked, and he said, "Okay, the days, set the date. It was going to be on a Thursday." So I left the embassy. I had to go through a place with where the guards outside didn't see me. I went into the trunk of a car, then to the trunk of another car. Then I went to the basement of an office building, and there were 5 friends of mine. And friends like Seth, like Tom, like my friends. Like, these are people you hang out with. So I meet them, and I hug them the same way I hug my friends today. "Hey man, what's up? What's happening?" So we have a rocky ride today. And we had an electricity company vehicle. So the first thing we did was to train ourselves. And if you're going to go into spycraft at some point in your life, maybe one of you do that, there are 2 things you need to know. You need to know how to answer 2 questions. Who are you, and why are you here? And in the technical terms of spycraft, this is called status of action and status of being. But you can go down a rabbit hole. Think about it. If you ask somebody, "Who are you?" it's not just your name. It's who are you, your name, your date of birth, who are you married to, what did you study, where were you born, where were you raised, so you can go down a rabbit hole about who are you. And if they ask you, why are you here, the same thing. So we spent 45 minutes thinking how we're putting this together. It was COVID, as I said, so we went through 20 checkpoints. Things were fine. And at the last checkpoint, it was the border between Venezuela and Colombia. It was a river. There was nobody in the checkpoint. So we went to a boat that was there. We were already in the boat, and all of a sudden, 8 military members, come storming towards us with machine guns, pointing at us, said, hey, you need to come back, you need to come back. So they started interrogating us, and we had planned also who was going to be the lead. So I was the last person to be talking to anybody. And since it was COVID, I had my COVID mask, and I was playing sick, very, very sick.
And no vaccine was out yet. The vaccine wasn't out yet.
No, the vaccine wasn't out yet. So, you might remember that. There was a lot of paranoia at the time. So I had my mask, and I was just coughing, and I was just showing them that, or acting as if I was very, very sick. And my friend who took the lead, he had to negotiate with the guard. And they took a bag that he had, and in the bag there was some cash. And they take the cash and they say, so who are you? Where are you guys? You are not an electricity unit. No, he said, I want to be true to you. I have a case against me. But what case? Is it political? No, it's not political. It's something that had to do with finance. And then he said, okay, I'm calling the general that he's going to come here and we'll see what's going to happen. And my friend was very quick to say, well, you know what's going to happen. If the general comes, he's going to stay with all of that cash and you're going to have none of that. So he thought about it for like 20 seconds. And after that, he said, all right, go. So we just stormed to the boat. We crossed the border, and then the intelligence unit of the Colombian government that was supportive at the time was waiting for us, and then they put us in a military plane to Bogota. And when I landed in Bogota, I met the Colombians, some of the Americans and others, and I said, hi, can I stay here for a couple of days to see some of the people? No, you're leaving. They put me in another plane, took me to the United States, to Florida, and the next day I flew to Venezuela, and I saw my kids, I saw my family, and it was another very changing moment. But
is it true you told your friend, look, I'm not going back, so I'll jump in and start swimming?
I told my friend, and I was a swimmer here at the Hun School.
I told Tom that story. He said he could swim.
I was a swimmer. I was a captain of the swimming team, and so I was very, very active. And when we were caught, I was just thinking, imagine all of the things that go through your head, right? You're caught, you're sitting there, you have like 4 guards, military uniforms, machine guns, and I told my friend, I said, I'm not going back. And the river was like maybe 30 meters away from where we were, and I said, if this, becomes more intense, I just want to tell you, I'm going to go to the river, and I don't care what's going to happen, but I am just not letting Maduro to take me to prison again. Hopefully that didn't take place, but I was determined. And if I hadn't swum at the Hun School, that would have been that would have been a non-possibility for me. So because I was swimming here at the Hun School, I was able to think of that scenario.
And I want to leave it with what we heard from your father. He was reading a letter, and we have the video. It was 2015 back here at the Hun School, and your dad was choking up a little bit, and let's play that. Cue the tape.
To those who are listening to this, I urge you to follow these events. Learn more and ask others to do the same. The perpetrators of this injustice can only win if the world turns a blind eye. But if people speak, act, and shine a spotlight on what is happening, change will come. The truth is that I do not know how long I will be here, but I do know that for as long as my imprisonment lasts, I will become serene. and clear on my principles and my convictions. I know that one day, and maybe it'll be one day soon, although time is something I have learned to master and not to allow to torment me, I will live in freedom and have even more strength than before to fight for the change and for a clear democracy for Venezuela. And when that happens, I look forward to walking down the Mall of Hun.
Thank you, Leo, so much.
Oh, thank you.
It's an honor and an inspiration to know you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Susie.
Thank-
And I walked the Mall of Hun today, and I can tell all of you, just follow your dream. Have a dream. I mean, think about it today. If you have one takeaway from this, ask yourself, what is your dream? What is your dream? And follow that dream. And do it with optimism. And do it with good energy. And have belief in yourself. Know that you can get wherever you want. And you will make mistakes. Yeah. You will fall down. You will be in places where you think that everything is falling upon you. And those are the most important moments for you to become stronger. Those are the moments when you fall down. So anytime you fall down in sports, in academics, in life, with your relations, know that those moments are the moments where you can become stronger. And have a dream. Think about it and follow that dream and be optimistic and have a smile in your face about the luck that you have, that you are following that dream. So thank you to the Hun School. Thanks to all of you. Thanks to all of you being here. It's great. Thank you.
And the head of school, Mr. Brock, would like to come up and present you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, let's also express our thanks to Susan Hendricks for her being here and moderating this event. Susan, we are so very proud to call you a Hun School alumna, and thank you for being here and for spending some time with our students later. I know we have some true crime aficionados in our reading community, so make sure to check out her first book, which was published this past fall, Down the Hill. Leopoldo, thank you for traveling all the way from Spain. And thank you and welcome to your daughter Manuela as well to be with us today. You are an inspiration, not just to our students, but to the world. The sacrifices you and your family have made in order to fight for democracy and the people of Venezuela are an incredible example to others. I hope you know that your friends at the Hun School have been watching and supporting you for the last decade. I was not here in 2015 when your father came to Hun, but I know that it was an important moment in Hun School history to hear his words and through him to hear your words. In honor of the wish that you shared in that letter and that you were able to fulfill this morning by returning to the mall, I'd like to present you with a gift, a framed photo of the mall in fall. So that you can have that view with you at all times. I'd like to make one more presentation. It is also my honor to present you with the Hun School of Princeton's 2024 Alumnus of the Year Award. We present this award to you in recognition of your compassion and dedication to the people of Venezuela and to the support of democracy and human rights around the world, for your steadfast representation of the Hun School's principles, ideals, and mission, and for serving as an exceptional example of the power of intellect, compassion, character, and resilience to our students of today and tomorrow. This award is the highest honor that the Hun School can bestow on any graduate, And so it is my great honor and privilege to recognize today Leopoldo Lopez as the 2024 Alumnus of the Year. A few housekeeping items before we conclude. Mr. Lopez and Ms. Hendricks will hang around for a bit. So if students, if you're interested in saying hello or taking a photo, please do come up. At 2 o'clock today, both of our guests will be meeting with various classes and interested students. Mr. Lopez will be in the Breen Performing Arts Center. Ms. Hendricks will be in Russell Lounge. And so if you are interested, please come by to learn more from them. And then we hope this afternoon, weather permitting, we can get in the boat. You can get in the boat. I'm not going to get in the boat for some rowing. Middle school, you are off to lunch. Upper school to fourth period. Upper school, if you are free, do not enter the lunchroom until 11:40. Thank you again, Susan. Thank you, Leopoldo. Have a wonderful day.